You willingly let someone inject pigments under your dermis? For aesthetic purposes? The Zexlaxian cultural liaison's translucent antennae twitched in what could only be described as horrified fascination. Well, yeah. Marcus rolled up his sleeve, revealing an intricate sleeve of Japanese-style waves and koi fish that wrapped around his forearm. It's called a tattoo. Been a human thing for thousands of years, actually. The liaison, who went by the much easier-to-pronounce name of Blue, due to their distinctive cerulean coloring, looked like they might faint. Their crystalline exoskeleton actually paled several shades lighter, which Marcus hadn't even known was possible. But, your body is your sacred vessel. The very concept of deliberately scarring it for... Blue's universal translator seemed to struggle for a moment. For fun? Marcus tried not to laugh at their obvious distress. He'd been working as Earth's representative at the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center for 3 years now, and he'd seen his fair share of alien species getting weirded out by human customs. But this reaction to tattoos was definitely making his top 10 list. It's not exactly scarring, he explained, attempting to keep his voice neutral and educational. The ink is placed in a specific layer of skin using very fine needles. It's a controlled process performed by trained artists. Some people get them to express themselves, others to commemorate important events or people in their lives. Mine? I just thought it looked cool. If anything, this explanation seemed to distress Blue even more. Their antennae were now vibrating at a frequency that made them almost blur. You mean to tell me that there are humans whose profession is to mutilate others? Okay, now you're just being dramatic. Marcus couldn't help but grin. Tell me, Blue, how exactly do your people modify their exoskeletons to display rank and social status again? Blue straightened up indignantly, their crystalline structure catching the light in a way that created rainbow patterns on the wall. That's completely different. The ceremonial etching of our outer shells is a sacred tradition that... They suddenly stopped, mandibles clicking as realization dawned. Not so different after all, huh? But we don't use needles, Blue muttered, somewhat petulantly. No, you use acid, which personally I find way more hardcore than a few little needles. The conversation might have continued in this vein, but they were interrupted by the arrival of Lieutenant Kira Rodriguez, whose entire right arm was covered in a stunning biomechanical tattoo that made it look like her skin was peeling away to reveal robotic components underneath. Blue took one look at her and made a sound that the universal translator didn't even attempt to interpret. Oh God, what did you do to Blue? Kira asked, noting the cultural liaison's distressed state. I haven't seen them this worked up since they discovered what roller coasters were. We were just having a friendly discussion about human body modification practices, Marcus said innocently. Ah, Kira nodded sagely. Showed them your koi fish, did you? Wait until they find out about scarification and subdermal implants. Blue's crystalline form made a distinct cracking sound. There's more? And that was how the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center ended up hosting an impromptu symposium on human body modification practices, attended by representatives from 17 different species, all of whom seemed simultaneously horrified and fascinated by humanity's apparent determination to treat their bodies like blank canvases. The arthropodians were particularly disturbed by the concept of piercing. You deliberately punch holes in your bodies to hang decorative items from them? While the gaseous collective of Betelgeuse 7 couldn't wrap their vapor-based consciousness around the idea of permanent modifications at all. But what if you change your mind? The mechanoids, on the other hand, found the whole thing rather admirable. It shows a commendable desire to upgrade and customize one's base form, their representative noted approvingly. Though your methods are rather organic. It was the shapeshifters from Proxima Centauri who seemed the most offended. Why would you need to permanently alter your form when you could simply change it at will? Their representative asked, demonstrating by turning their arm into an exact replica of Marcus's tattoo, then back again. Show-offs, Marcus muttered under his breath, causing Kira to snort. The symposium might have continued indefinitely if Admiral Zhang hadn't walked in, taken one look at the chaos, and asked what was going on. The sight of his full traditional Maori facial tattoo caused Blue to finally achieve what Marcus had previously thought impossible for their species. They fainted dead away, their crystalline form tinkling gently as they hit the floor. Was it something I said? The Admiral asked, bemused. No, sir, Kira replied, trying to keep a straight face. I think it was something you wore. The incident went down in Galactic Cultural Exchange Center history as the Great Tattoo Panic of 2157. and led to the creation of a new subsection in the official First Contact Protocols titled, Warning: Humans may deliberately modify their bodies in ways that other species find disturbing. It also sparked a rather unexpected trend among some of the younger, more rebellious members of various alien species. Blue was horrified to discover that their own offspring had gotten their exoskeleton etched with a design that suspiciously resembled Marcus's koi fish. "I blame you for this," they told Marcus during one of their weekly cultural exchange meetings, their antennae drooping in resignation. "Me? I'm not the one who fainted so dramatically that it made body modification seem like the coolest form of rebellion ever." Marcus paused thoughtfully. "Though I have to admit, that koi fish design does look pretty sweet in crystal." Blue made that untranslatable sound again, but Marcus could have sworn there was a hint of pride in it this time. As humanity continued to integrate with the galactic community, tattoos became something of a signature human art form. Alien anthropologists wrote lengthy treatises about humanity's unique relationship with permanent body modification, trying to understand what it said about our species' psychology. The conclusions they reached were varied and often hilarious. The hive mind of Rigel 4 published a paper suggesting that humans got tattoos because we were subconsciously trying to compensate for our lack of natural bioluminescence. The silicon beings of Tau Ceti hypothesized that it was a way of making up for our regrettably static physical forms. Marcus's personal favorite was the theory put forward by the quantum consciousness of Vega, which suggested that humans got tattoos because we were actually fourth-dimensional beings trying to anchor ourselves in three-dimensional space. He had that one framed and hung in his office. The reality, of course, was much simpler, as he explained to Blue over drinks one evening, about a year after the initial incident. "Sometimes a tattoo is just a tattoo," he said, rolling up his sleeve to show off a new addition to his collection. A small blue crystal design that looked suspiciously like a certain cultural liaison's natural form. "Sometimes it's deep and meaningful, sometimes it's just art, and sometimes—" He grinned as Blue's antennae started their now familiar distressed twitching. "Sometimes it's just to mess with easily scandalized alien friends." Blue's crystal structure shifted in what Marcus had learned to recognize as their version of an eye roll. "You humans are impossible." "Yeah," Marcus agreed, "but you have to admit, we keep things interesting." "That's one word for it," Blue muttered. But their crystalline form was glowing with what Marcus knew was affection. "Though I suppose I should thank you. My offspring's etching business is quite successful." "Wait, what?" "Oh yes," Blue said, with just a hint of smugness. "They've become quite renowned for their human-inspired body modifications. Apparently they have a 6-month waiting list." Marcus stared at them for a long moment before bursting into laughter. "You know what this means, right?" "I'm afraid to ask." "Humanity didn't just introduce the concept of tattoos to the galaxy. We accidentally invented space hipsters." The sound Blue made in response to this revelation wasn't translated by their universal translator, but it didn't need to be. Some things, it seemed, were universal after all. And that's how humanity's love of ink became our first truly successful cultural export to the wider galaxy. Not our art, not our music, not our literature, but our stubborn insistence on decorating our bodies in permanent and occasionally painful ways. As Admiral Zhang would later remark in his memoir, "Of all the ways I imagined humanity would make its mark on the galaxy, I never thought it would be quite so literal." The end, sah. When aliens discovered human tattoos, they freaked out. Part 2. "You're telling me humans also create temporary body modifications?" The newly appointed hive queen of the Vesporian collective buzzed incredulously, her compound eyes reflecting Marcus's face in countless tiny mirrors. Marcus grinned as he rolled up his sleeve, revealing not his familiar koi fish tattoo, but rather an intricate henna design that Kira had applied the previous day. "Yep, this one's called henna. It'll last about 2 weeks before fading completely." Blue, who had been hovering nearby, metaphorically speaking, their crystalline form was firmly planted on the ground, made a sound that could only be described as a resigned sigh. "Here we go again." The Galactic Cultural Exchange Center had come a long way since the infamous Great Tattoo Panic. These days they had an entire wing dedicated to human body modification practices, complete with holographic displays showing everything from ancient tribal scarification to modern nano-tattoos. Blue's offspring, now a celebrated artist in their own right, had even contributed a display comparing Earth tattoo techniques with various alien body modification practices. But apparently nobody had thought to mention temporary modifications to their galactic neighbors. But why? The Hive Queen's antennae twitched in confusion. Why go through the process if it's not permanent? Same reason we do anything. Lieutenant Rodriguez chimed in, showing off her own henna-decorated hands. Because it's fun. Plus it lets us try out different designs without committing to them forever. Like a test drive for your skin, Marcus added helpfully. The Hive Queen's thorax vibrated in what might have been distress or fascination. With the Vesporians, it was often hard to tell the difference. And this, henna, it doesn't harm your epidermis? Nope. It's completely natural, made from plants. Been used for thousands of years in various human cultures. Fascinating. The Queen leaned closer, her antennae nearly touching Marcus's arm. And these patterns, they appear to be fractal in nature? Good eye, Kira said, pleased. I based the design on Mandelbrot sets. Thought our mathematical friends might appreciate it. The Vesporians were renowned throughout the galaxy for their advanced understanding of mathematical principles, having evolved from hive-building insects whose very societies were structured around geometric patterns. The mention of fractals seemed to flip a switch in the Queen's behavior. Most intriguing. The implementation of mathematical constants in temporary aesthetic modification. Yes, this has potential. Tell me, would this henna work on exoskeletons? Blue made a strangled sound. Your Majesty, surely you're not suggesting... Why not? The Queen's compound eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Think of the possibilities. We could update our hive markings with the changing of the seasons, display different mathematical theorems during our academic conferences. Oh, the Mathematical Council will be absolutely thrilled. Marcus caught Kira's eye and mouthed, "What have we done?" She responded with a subtle shrug that clearly meant, just go with it. Within a week, the Vesporian embassy had placed a bulk order for henna powder and requested a permanent cultural exchange officer, specifically to teach their artists Earth's temporary body modification techniques. Blue, watching all this unfold with a mixture of horror and resignation, could only shake their crystalline head. First permanent modifications, now temporary ones. What's next? Will you tell them about your holographic fashion projectors? Marcus and Kira exchanged guilty looks. About that, Marcus began. No. Blue's crystal structure actually dimmed. Don't tell me. The mechanoids may have already scheduled a symposium on programmable appearance modifications, Kira admitted. They're particularly interested in the bioreactive light tattoos. Blue's antennae drooped. I'm starting to think we should have quarantined Earth's fashion trends when we had the chance. But it was far too late for that. The genie was out of the bottle, and it was wearing temporary tattoos, holographic accessories, and probably a few piercings just for good measure. The situation reached new levels of absurdity when the shapeshifters, who had initially been so dismissive of permanent modifications, became absolutely enamored with the concept of temporary ones. It's like voluntary shapeshifting with a time limit, their cultural attaché exclaimed excitedly. It adds an element of challenge. Soon, the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center had to expand its human body modification wing yet again, this time to include a section on temporary and programmable aesthetic alterations. The display included everything from classic henna designs to the latest in bioluminescent temporary tattoos that reacted to the wearer's mood. The Quantum Consciousness of Vega published a follow-up to their earlier paper, now suggesting that temporary modifications were humanity's way of exploring parallel universes through aesthetic means. Marcus had that one framed and hung right next to the first one. You know what the really funny part is? He said to Blue during one of their regular meetings. Most humans don't even think about this stuff that much. We just do it because we think it looks cool. That's what worries me, Blue replied. Your species does things because they look cool, that end up revolutionizing how other species think about their own bodies and cultural expressions. Do you have any idea how many diplomatic incidents we've had to handle because some species or other suddenly decided they wanted to revolutionize their traditional appearance modifications? Hey, at least nobody's fainted since you did. Don't remind me. Blue's crystal structure flickered in embarrassment. Though I suppose I should be grateful. My offspring's latest gallery showing was attended by 3 hive queens and a mechanoid archon. Apparently they're pioneering a new form of art that combines traditional crystal etching with temporary organic pigments and programmable light patterns. Marcus blinked. That actually sounds amazing. It is, Blue admitted grudgingly. Though I'm still not sure how I feel about the fact that my offspring's artist statement credits human irreverence toward bodily permanence as their primary inspiration. Could be worse, Kira chimed in, joining their conversation. Wait until they discover human fashion trends from the 2030s. Blue's entire form shuddered. Please tell me you're joking. What, you mean you're not ready for holographic platform shoes and quantum-entangled accessories? The sound Blue made caused 3 passing arthropodians to stop and ask if they needed medical assistance. Meanwhile, in the Vesporian Hive Queen's personal chambers, a team of artists was carefully applying fractal henna patterns to her exoskeleton in preparation for an upcoming mathematical symposium. The designs incorporated proof of the Riemann hypothesis, which had finally been solved by a joint team of human and Vesporian mathematicians the previous year. In the mechanoid sectors, bioreactive light tattoos had sparked a whole new movement in human-machine interface design, leading to developments that would eventually revolutionize both species' understanding of consciousness and embodiment. And in a small studio on the outskirts of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center, Blue's offspring was putting the finishing touches on their latest piece, a crystalline sculpture that incorporated traditional Zexlaxian etching techniques, Earth-inspired tattoo designs, Vesporian mathematical patterns, and programmable bioluminescent elements. They had titled it Convergence, a study in cross-species body art. It would go on to win the prestigious Galactic Arts Federation Prize, the first piece of its kind to do so. In their acceptance speech, they would thank their human friends for teaching us that the body, in any form, is not just a vessel to be preserved, but a canvas to be celebrated. Marcus, sitting in the audience with Blue and Kira, would lean over and whisper, "Not bad for a species that freaked out over some ink under the skin, huh?" Blue's response would not be translated by any known technology, but their crystalline form would be glowing with unmistakable pride. And somewhere in the vast archives of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center, the original incident report from the Great Tattoo Panic would be marked with a new addendum. In retrospect, this may have been the most influential fashion crisis in galactic history. Admiral Zhang, upon reading this, would simply smile and add his own note. Fashion crisis? No. Cultural revolution? Absolutely. And he would know. By then, his traditional Maori facial tattoo had been replicated, with appropriate cultural permission and recognition, in 17 different alien art forms, including a particularly stunning version in Zexalaxian crystal etching. Humanity, it seemed, had not only marked itself, but had left an indelible mark on the galaxy as well, even if some of those marks were only temporary. When aliens discovered human tattoos, they freaked out. Part 3. "We might have created a monster," Marcus announced as he walked into the weekly cultural exchange meeting, his expression caught between amusement and concern. "Only one?" Kira didn't look up from her datapad, where she was reviewing the latest incident reports. "That would be a nice change of pace." Blue's crystalline form shifted in what had become their equivalent of raising an eyebrow. "What is it this time? Please tell me the gaseous collective hasn't tried to incorporate permanent tattoos into their vapor forms again. The cleanup from last time was—" "Actually," Marcus interrupted, pulling up a holographic display. "It's the mechanoids. They've developed something they're calling quantum tattoos." This got everyone's attention. Even Blue's offspring, who now went by the artist name Crystal Echo and had been quietly working on a new piece in the corner, looked up with interest. "Define quantum tattoos," Kira said slowly, as if afraid of the answer. "Well, you know how the mechanoids have been experimenting with bioreactive light tattoos? Apparently, they decided that wasn't quite impressive enough, so they developed a way to create designs that exist in a quantum superposition." Blue made a sound that their translator interpreted as, "Oh no." "Oh yes," Marcus continued, expanding the holographic display. "The tattoos exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. They're calling it Schrödinger's ink." The display showed a mechanoid whose metallic surface bore a design that seemed to shift and change not just in appearance, but in fundamental reality itself. One moment it was a geometric pattern, the next an organic swirl, and sometimes it appeared to be both at once. "That's—" Crystal Echo moved closer to the display, their crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. "That's actually brilliant. The artistic implications alone are terrifying," Blue finished. "Do you have any idea what the quantum consciousness of Vega is going to make of this? Their last paper on human body modification practices nearly caused a philosophical crisis in 3 sectors. As if on cue, Kira's datapad pinged with a new notification. She read it and started laughing. Too late. They've already published a preliminary analysis. According to this, quantum tattoos prove their original theory that humans are fourth-dimensional beings, and the mechanoids have finally found a way to capture our true form." Marcus grinned. That's going on the wall with the others. But the quantum tattoos were just the beginning. The Vesporians, not to be outdone, had combined their mathematical henna patterns with pioneering work in four-dimensional geometry. The results were temporary tattoos that seemed to extend into spaces that shouldn't exist. The shapeshifters, meanwhile, had developed what they called recursive morphic resonance patterns, designs that actually influenced their natural shape-shifting abilities in mathematically predictable ways. This led to the creation of an entirely new art form they called topological body poetry. Even the gaseous collective, after their initial disasters with permanent modifications, had found their niche. They developed a technique for creating temporary electromagnetic field patterns that mimicked tattoo designs in their vapor forms. The effect was like seeing a rainbow made of living calligraphy. "You know what the really crazy part is?" Marcus said one day, watching a group of junior diplomats from various species comparing their latest modifications in the center's atrium. None of this would have happened if Blue hadn't fainted that day. Blue's crystal structure dimmed in embarrassment. "I maintain that my reaction was perfectly reasonable given the circumstances." "Oh, absolutely," Kira agreed, her own quantum tattoo shifting through various states of existence on her shoulder. Just like it was perfectly reasonable for the Arthropodians to start their piercing revolution after they got over their initial horror. The Arthropodians had indeed embraced body piercing with unexpected enthusiasm, once they discovered that their exoskeletons could be decorated with specialized quantum crystalline jewelry. Their current fashion trends involved complex arrangements of pieces that created interference patterns in higher dimensional spaces. "I still can't believe they named a whole artistic movement after me," Blue mused, watching their offspring demonstrate a new technique that combined quantum states with crystal etching. "The Blue Shift school of xenomorphic art is not exactly what I imagined would be my legacy to galactic culture." "Could be worse," Marcus pointed out. "Remember when the silicon beings decided to start experimenting with temporary surface restructuring?" Everyone winced. The resulting silicon tattoo trend had led to some interesting developments in computational aesthetics, but the early attempts had caused more than a few diplomatic incidents, particularly the one that had accidentally reprogrammed a junior ambassador to speak exclusively in limericks for a week. The Galactic Cultural Exchange Center had had to add yet another wing, this one dedicated entirely to quantum, dimensional, and computational body art. The original human tattoo display now seemed almost quaint in comparison, though it remained one of the most popular exhibits among newly contacted species. "It's like watching evolution in fast forward," Crystal Echo observed, their latest piece taking shape under their careful manipulation of quantum states and crystal matrices. "Each species takes the basic concept and adapts it to their own physical form and cultural understanding." "Speaking of evolution," Kira said, pulling up another notification on her datapad, "you'll never guess what the Hive Queen's latest project is." "Do I want to know?" Blue asked wearily. "They're working on a way to incorporate quantum henna patterns into their larval development chambers. Apparently they think early exposure to mathematical art might influence cognitive development." Marcus blinked. "That's actually kind of brilliant." "It's insane," Blue corrected, but their crystal structure was glowing with what might have been pride. "Brilliantly insane. So, perfectly human-inspired." The conversation might have continued in this vein, but they were interrupted by the arrival of a delegation from a newly contacted species, the photonic harmonics of Tau Ceti. Their form was pure light given consciousness, and they had just discovered the human concept of body modification. "You mean you deliberately alter your physical form to create patterns that have no practical purpose?" their representative asked, their light form flickering with what might have been confusion or excitement. Marcus, Kira, and Blue all exchanged looks. "Here we go again," Blue sighed, but they were already glowing with anticipation of what new developments this might bring. After all, if there was one thing they'd learned about human-inspired body modification, it was that it never stopped evolving. Even now, somewhere in the galaxy, some species was probably figuring out how to combine quantum tattoos with photonic resonance patterns, or developing a way to create temporary modifications in 11-dimensional space. And that was exactly how it should be. As Admiral Zhang would later note in the updated edition of his memoirs, "We thought we were just showing the galaxy our tattoos. Instead, we gave them a whole new way of thinking about art, identity, and the nature of reality itself." Though I still maintain that nothing beats a good old-fashioned Maori facial tattoo for making a first impression, even if that impression involves making a cultural liaison faint. Blue would add their own footnote to this. "In my defense, I hadn't had my morning crystalline alignment yet. Though I suppose if one must go down in galactic history, sparking an artistic revolution is not the worst way to do it. And somewhere in the vast archives of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center, a small plaque would be added to the original human tattoo display. From small ink drops, mighty waves of change flow, or as humans would say, you should have seen the other guy. When aliens discovered human tattoos, they freaked out. Part 4. Permission to speak freely, Admiral. Marcus stood at attention in Admiral Zhang's office, trying to keep a straight face. Granted, though that expression of yours suggests I might regret it. The Admiral leaned back in his chair, his Maori facial tattoo catching the light from the quantum state window behind him. A recent upgrade that the mechanoids had insisted on installing throughout the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center. Sir, have you seen what the photonic harmonics have done with the whole body modification concept? Enlighten me. The Admiral's choice of words made Marcus snort, given the species in question. They've developed what they're calling consciousness tattoos. Instead of modifying physical form, they're actually patterning their thought structures to create four-dimensional art in their light forms. The Admiral blinked. They're tattooing their thoughts? More or less. Blue's offspring, Crystal Echo, has been working with them to create a new art form that combines quantum states, crystalline structures, and conscious thought patterns. They're calling it sentient abstract expressionism. And let me guess, the quantum consciousness of Vega has already published a paper about it? Marcus grinned. 3, actually. My favorite suggests that consciousness tattoos prove that thought itself is just a specialized form of body modification in fourth-dimensional spacetime. The Admiral rubbed his temples. Sometimes I think we should have just shown them stick-on temporary tattoos first and worked our way up from there. Oh, that reminds me. Marcus pulled up a holographic display. The gaseous collective has finally figured out how to create permanent patterns in their vapor forms. They're using a combination of electromagnetically charged particles and quantum-locked molecular structures. Stable tattoos for beings made of gas? The Admiral shook his head in amazement. Now I've heard everything. Not quite, sir. Wait until you hear what the Hive Queen's mathematical tattoo experiments did to their larval development chambers. Do I want to know? The larvae developed an unprecedented understanding of non-Euclidean geometry. They're talking about establishing a new academic discipline, bio-quantum mathematical art theory. The Admiral was silent for a moment. You know, when I first showed Blue my facial tattoo all those years ago, I never imagined it would lead to larvae studying higher dimensional mathematics through body art. Life's funny that way, sir. Their conversation was interrupted by Kira bursting into the office. Her quantum tattoo cycling through states so rapidly it was creating small distortions in local space-time. We've got a situation, she announced, trying to catch her breath. The Silicon beings have managed to combine their computational surface restructuring with the photonic harmonics consciousness tattoos. And? Marcus prompted, sensing there was more. And they've accidentally created a form of silicon-based philosophical art that's gaining sentience. There was a moment of stunned silence. They've what now? The Admiral asked quietly. Apparently, when you combine computational surface patterns with consciousness-based art forms, there's a small chance of spontaneous emergence of philosophical awareness. Kira consulted her datapad. The first one began contemplating its own existence and started generating recursive aesthetic patterns that seemed to be a visual representation of the hard problem of consciousness. Marcus whistled. Blue's gonna love this. As if on cue, Blue's crystalline form appeared in the doorway, vibrating with what might have been excitement or distress. Have you heard? The Living Philosophy Art is asking to enroll in the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program. The Admiral put his head in his hands. As what? An art installation or a student? Both, actually, Blue replied. It wants to study xenological aesthetics while serving as an interactive exhibit on the evolution of sentient art forms. Of course it does. The Admiral looked up at the ceiling, where the quantum state windows were creating patterns that seemed suspiciously like they were trying to communicate in abstract expressionist terms. Why not? We've already got quantum tattoos, consciousness art, and mathematical larvae. What's a little sentient philosophy between friends? Crystal Echo chose that moment to join the gathering, their form glowing with excitement. You haven't heard the best part. The photonic harmonics want to collaborate with the sentient philosophy art to create a new form of educational experience. They're calling it immersive metaphysical body modification. Please tell me that doesn't mean what I think it means, Blue said weakly. If you think it means they want to create an art form that temporarily modifies the consciousness of the observer to allow direct experience of philosophical concepts through aesthetic patterns, then yes, that's exactly what it means. Marcus turned to the Admiral. Sir, I believe this might be a good time to update that warning in the first contact protocols. You mean the one about humans modifying their bodies in disturbing ways? The Admiral was already typing on his quantum interface. Way ahead of you. How does this sound? Warning. Human body modification practices may lead to unexpected developments in quantum physics, metaphysical philosophy, and the spontaneous emergence of sentient art forms. Proceed with caution. Maybe add something about the mathematical larvae, Kira suggested. And the consciousness tattoos, Blue added. Don't forget the silicon-based philosophical art, Crystal Echo chimed in. The Admiral looked at them all. Perhaps we should just add, the galaxy may never be the same. They all considered this for a moment. Actually, Marcus said slowly, I think that's been true since day one, since the moment Blue fainted at the sight of my koi fish tattoo. Blue's crystal structure flickered in what might have been embarrassment or amusement. In my defense, I had no idea I was witnessing the beginning of a galactic artistic revolution. None of us did, the Admiral said, his facial tattoo seeming to shift slightly in the quantum light, though I suppose that's the real legacy of human body modification. We never know quite where it's going to lead, but it's certainly never boring. Speaking of never boring, Kira interjected, checking her datapad again. The sentient philosophy art is requesting a meeting to discuss the possibility of combining quantum tattoo techniques with computational ethics to create what it calls moral aesthetics. There was another moment of silence. You know what? The Admiral said finally. I think I need to update my memoir again. This chapter might need to be titled, From Tattoo Panic to Sentient Philosophy. How Humanity Accidentally Revolutionized Galactic Art, Science, and Consciousness Itself. Bit long for a title, Marcus observed. True, the Admiral conceded. How about we just call it Humanity? Making the galaxy more interesting, one tattoo at a time. Blue's translator crackled with what might have been laughter. Now that, they said, is an understatement if I ever heard one. And somewhere in the vast archives of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center, a small quantum state display flickered into existence next to the original human tattoo exhibit, showing a simple message that shifted between multiple states of reality. Here began the revolution that no one saw coming, except perhaps the quantum tattoos themselves, to be continued.